What if I told you that the biggest financial trend in America right now isn't investing? It isn't crypto, and it definitely isn't buying more stuff. It's something much simpler. Americans are saving money again, and not just a few people. More than half of Americans are actively trying to save more in 2026. Now here's the crazy part. The people doing this aren't necessarily making more money than everyone else. They're not winning the lottery. They're not becoming overnight millionaires. They've simply realized something that millions of Americans are only now starting to understand. And if they're right, the next few years could create a massive gap between people who prepared and people who didn't. So, why are Americans suddenly saving more? And why should you start paying attention today? Let's find out. For years, Americans were encouraged to spend. Spend to stimulate the economy. Spend because tomorrow would always be better. Spend because money sitting in a bank account wasn't earning much anyway. And honestly, a lot of people followed that advice. Then reality hit. Over the last few years, Americans watched grocery bills jump. They watched rent prices climb. They watched home insurance, car insurance, healthcare costs, and utility bills move higher and higher. Suddenly, life became more expensive, and millions of people discovered a painful truth. Most financial emergencies don't send a warning text message. They just show up. One day your car breaks down. The next day your water heater dies. A week later, an unexpected medical bill lands in your mailbox. And if you don't have savings, those moments become financial disasters. That's why more Americans are building emergency funds than we've seen in years. Not because it's exciting, not because it's trendy, but because they've experienced what happens when they're unprepared. And they don't want to repeat that mistake. But there's another reason Americans are saving more, and it has everything to do with uncertainty. Think about the headlines you've seen recently. Layoffs, corporate downsizing, government debt concerns, talk about recessions, talk about economic slowdowns. Even when the stock market performs well, many Americans still feel nervous about what's coming next. When people become uncertain about the future, they naturally start preparing. And one of the best forms of preparation is cash. Because cash buys time. Cash reduces stress. Cash gives you options when life doesn't go according to plan. And right now, Americans value those options more than ever. Here's something else that's changing. For the first time in a long time, saving money actually feels rewarding. Remember when banks paid almost nothing on savings accounts? You could leave money there for an entire year and barely earn enough for a cup of coffee. Those days are mostly gone. Today, many Americans can earn meaningful interest on their savings. That may not sound exciting, but psychologically, it changes everything. People feel like their money is finally working for them. And when people see progress, they become more motivated to save. What starts as a few dollars a week often turns into a powerful financial habit. Now, let's talk about younger Americans, because they're playing a bigger role in this trend than many people realize. A lot of people assume younger generations only care about spending money, but the data tells a different story. Millions of young Americans watch their parents struggle through economic uncertainty. They saw debt become stressful. They saw inflation reduce purchasing power. And they learned an important lesson. Financial freedom isn't about looking rich. It's about having choices. That's why more young adults are budgeting, building emergency funds, starting investment accounts, and focusing on long-term wealth instead of short-term appearances. They're thinking differently. And that mindset shift could have a huge impact over the next decade. Now here's the biggest reason of all. More Americans are beginning to understand how wealth is actually built. Because wealth isn't usually created through one big decision. It's created through thousands of small decisions repeated consistently over time. Saving $20, saving $50, saving $100, week after week, month after month, year after year. It doesn't sound exciting, but that's exactly why it works. The people building financial security aren't always the smartest. They're not always the highest earners. They're often just the most consistent. And consistency beats intensity almost every time. So if over half of Americans are saving more in 2026, what's the lesson? It's simple. They're preparing for opportunities, preparing for uncertainty, preparing for a future that's becoming harder to predict. Because when you have savings, you're not forced to make desperate decisions. You have breathing room, you have flexibility, you have peace of mind. And in today's economy, that might be one of the most valuable assets you can own. So here's the question. A year from now, will you be glad you started saving today? Or will you wish you had? If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more financial insights, and let me know in the comments, what's your biggest savings goal for 2026? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.